Good evening. You're watching the late news on HKIBC. I'm Isabel Wong. Here are tonight's top stories. China Airlines pilots continue strike for second day, leading to more flight cancellations. Police search for evidence in MTR missing documents case as lawmakers call for full review of rail giant's management system. And British media report says UK government looking to shut out Huawei from critical infrastructure. Talks between China Airlines and its pilots union are ongoing as pilots continued their strike for a second day. But sources said the meeting did not go well. Over 20 flights were cancelled today due to the industrial action. Riley Chan reports.
Dozens of China Airlines pilots union members gathered outside Taiwan's Ministry of Transportation and Communications today. The building would host negotiations between the union and the airline. The union said they had collected some 400 work passes from pilots so far, representing a third of the airline's pilots who supported the strike. The ministry set up the emergency talk, hoping that the airline would address the pilots' demand to improve work conditions during long-haul flights. The union reiterated that no compromises would be made. We are talking about air safety. Do you think we can compromise air safety? A unionist asked. Earlier this morning at Taiwan Taoyuan International Airport, passengers were left stranded after flights to Hong Kong, Japan and Cambodia were cancelled. China Airlines President Xie Zhiqian arrived at the terminal and thanked frontline staff for their work. Our door is always open. Nothing is non-negotiable. I hope we could reach a preliminary consensus in the talk later, Xie said. The airline's pilots began the industrial action yesterday morning after management refused to hire more pilots for long-haul flights. The air carrier said it would increase costs and undermine the company's competitiveness. Taoyuan Airport pledged to work with relevant authorities and try to minimize the impact caused by the labor action. Taiwan's Tourism Bureau said travel agencies affected by the strike could lodge a claim against China Airlines, and the Bureau would provide necessary assistance. Meanwhile, at Hong Kong's airport, several flights were cancelled today due to the strike. Hong Kong Airlines has agreed to add 4 extra flights between Hong Kong and Taiwan to take affected passengers. The airport authorities said it would closely monitor the situation and urged passengers to check the status of their flights before heading to the airport. Riley Chan, HKIBC.
Police have started searching for evidence at the offices and construction site of the troubled Hong Kong station after it emerged that key records were missing. Meanwhile, lawmakers called for an immediate and full-scale review of the MTR's monitoring and management system, with one labelling the credibility of the railway operator as bankrupt. More from Riley Chan.
Police were seen at the administration office of the Sha Tin to Central Links Hong Kong Station project in Hong Kong this morning to collect evidence. Sources said the Kowloon West Crime Squad had begun a search of the construction site and administrative building since the 1st of February and removed computer hard drives and piles of documents for their investigation into missing construction records. The scandal plagued the $97.1 billion rail link deepened last week after it emerged that there were unauthorized alterations and missing construction documents relating to Hong Kong Station. Chief Executive Carrie Lam has called on a commission of inquiry into the shoddy work to expand the scope of its investigation to cover the latest discovery. But legislators did not believe it was enough. Civic Party legislator Tanya Chen said she would move a motion to invoke the Legislative Council's special powers to investigate the scandal. If the motion is passed, lawmakers can summon witnesses and demand evidence.
The Commission of Inquiry has no duty or no power to investigate into the civil or criminal obligations of different People's Act. However, for the Select Committee of LegCo, we can do much further. The legislator have our own power to determine the terms of reference as well as how far and how deep we can go.
But Lo Wai Kwok from the Business and Professional Alliance said it was more efficient to let the Commission of Inquiry follow up with a probe, as he was worried that LegCo would not have enough time to finish the investigation by 2020, when a new legislature would be elected. Architectural sector lawmaker Tony Tse was blunt in his description of the MTR's role as regulator of its infrastructure projects, calling it bankrupt. He urged the government, the MTR's largest shareholder, to fix the rail operator's management and governance problems.
The whole system in the MTRC had to be reviewed, particularly regarding the role of the board of directors. And the director actually, there are a number of directors appointed by governments, whether they really, look at what their role, what sort of performance they expect from this director, and also the management teams of the corporations, whether they are, really try to, to tell all the facts and, the information to the board. All these sort of things, I think, have to be reviewed because at the moment the system seems to crack down.
He suggested the Highways Department send staff to oversee MTR projects on site in the future. Riley Chen, HKIBC.
Consumers will likely pay for the cost of tariffs on goods if the trade war between the US and China is not resolved. That was the prediction from Commerce Chief Edward Yao as the trade war truce deadline on March 1st approached. Yu Ping reports.
China and the US have until the 1st of March to strike a trade deal. That is when the trade war truce ends. US President Donald Trump has stated that if both sides failed to reach a deal by the deadline, Washington would increase tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese imports from 10% to 25%. Commerce and Economic Development Secretary Edward Yao said Hong Kong businesses are concerned about the impact of the trade conflict between the world's largest economies. Speaking on a radio program this morning, Yao believed producers were likely to shift the cost of tariffs to consumers. It was estimated that the US-China trade war could affect as much as $350.7 billion of Hong Kong re-exports, which accounted for 9.1% of total domestic exports. That meant 0.5% of the city's GDP could be impacted, Yao warned. But it stressed it was hard to predict in what way Hong Kong would be affected if the US and China escalated their trade dispute, as the city's economy could also be disrupted by other investment factors. The Commerce Minister said the government would try and help local businesses explore new opportunities in other markets to offset any potential impact from the trade war. Yu Ping, HKIBC.
A man in his 30s has been arrested in connection with 5 burglary cases in Hong Kong and Chow Kwan Wan. Police took away 3 laptops and cash register components from the suspect's home as evidence. The suspect is alleged to have broken into 4 restaurants earlier this week by forcing open their shutters with a nail file. Police arrested the man in Chow Kwan Wan last night after he appeared to be acting suspicious. They found a nail file on the man. He remains in custody. Family members of casino tycoon Stanley Ho brushed off speculations that this 97-year-old was seriously ill. Orlando Ho arrived at a sanatorium and hospital where he said his father was just resting. The Sun denied media reports that the older Ho had been admitted to intensive care unit due to organ failure. "My father is in very good health," he said. Other family members also appeared in the hospital. Ho's daughter Laurinda Ho said she was just there to get red packets from her father. Mainland telecom giant Huawei is finding itself becoming increasingly isolated as government agencies and organizations around the world seek to ban its equipment. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is reportedly planning to tell European allies to ditch Huawei during his visit to Hungary next week. In the latest move to limit the reach of Chinese telecom giant Huawei, new laws on foreign investment in Britain are being drafted to block Huawei from sensitive British tech projects, according to a report by UK tabloid The Sun. The report also said many were concerned that allowing Huawei an inside track on the rollout of the 5G mobile network in the country would let China spy on private lives of British citizens and hack UK companies. British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt and Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson are reportedly among those concerned about Huawei's reach. Meanwhile, a Bloomberg report said U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was planning to tell European allies that the U.S. expected them not to abet rivals, such as Huawei, during his scheduled visit to Hungary next week. Academic institutions in the U.S. have also started distancing themselves from Huawei, as the University of California in Berkeley has halted new research collaborations with the Chinese technology firm in the wake of U.S. criminal indictments against the tech firm. UC Berkeley said in a statement that the directive to ban new funding from Huawei or any of its subsidiaries and affiliates in support of university research projects took effect on January 30th, after a careful internal review and consultation with peer institutions due to serious allegations against China's largest smartphone maker. American officials have also pointed to China's national intelligence law that required Chinese companies to support, provide assistance and cooperate with Beijing's national intelligence work. The law led to Czech cybersecurity agency NUKIP to issue a formal warning in December about the risk posed by Huawei and another Chinese technology firm, ZTE. In an effort to push back against attempts to limit its reach in Europe, Huawei has written a letter to NUKIP and threatened legal action against the Czech Republic if the agency did not rescind its warning. Earlier this week, Huawei sent a letter to British Parliament to defend its track record and claimed that any malicious activity on its part would destroy its business. Trade talks between the U.S. and China have entered a critical round as U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer arrived in Beijing. A White House statement said principal-level meetings will take place from February 14th to February 15th. The meetings will be preceded by deputy-level negotiations that will begin on February 11th and led by Deputy U.S. Trade Representative Jeffrey Jerish. With less than 3 weeks to go before the tariff ceasefire expires, technology and foreign ownership are expected to be a focus in the latest round of trade talks. And still to come after the break. Second summit between U.S. President and North Korean leader confirmed for end of this month in Hanoi. Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that he will meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi at the end of this month. U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea Stephen Biegun said he had productive discussions with his Pyongyang counterparts and would meet again before the summit. Thailand's king has called his eldest sister's bid to run for prime minister as extremely inappropriate. In a palace statement, King Vajiralongkorn said the move by his elder sister would define the nation's traditions and culture. The statement also cited a passage in the country's constitution that underscored political neutrality of the monarchy. The 67-year-old princess relinquished her royal titles after she married an American in 1972. The announcement will likely to lead to disqualification of Princess Wubontra Maidon's nomination. In one of the largest slums in Venezuela's capital, Caracas, volunteers line up at soup kitchens to ladle out donated food. Once a stronghold of embattled President Nicolas Maduro, people inside the slum have begun questioning their alliance to the socialist revolution, but few dare to express their dissent out of fear. All right, on to the weather now. It will be mainly cloudy with 1 or 2 light rain patches tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 17 and 20 degrees. Temperatures will rise again and the sun will come out in the next few days. But now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's all the news for now. Thanks for watching HKIBC. I'm Isabel Wong. Good night.